Episode 11, Conscious Kink Q&A. Welcome to Lightworkers Who Play in the Dark, where we bring the darkness into the light. I'm your host, Mistress Damianachiphd, and I have been a professional dominatrix for over 2 decades. I'm also a certified sexologist and a kink life coach. I hold a Ph.D. and a master's degree in psychology. I am the founder of the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy and the creator of Conscious Kink Community. These podcast episodes will feature different themes like Q&As, where I answer kink-related questions from my listeners, topic interviews with people in the BDSM community, and FemDom psychodrama scenes, in which I dominate a submissive while you listen in, as we get into some dom space and subspace together. Now, let's get on with the episode. The following is the recording of a Conscious Kink Q&A Zoom call that I hosted for my Patreon community. I'm sharing it to this podcast to educate and raise awareness and understanding about conscious kink, conscious BDSM, and conscious FemDom. I had planned to host these calls once a month, but I took many months off to write my book, The Dominatrix Archetypes, Become a Multidimensional Dominatrix in the Art of BDSM FemDom. Now that the book has been launched, I will be going back to a more regular schedule. If you're interested in participating on these calls, you are welcome to join my Patreon community. There were so many great questions on this call, like these. What's the best first step to get into the professional FemDom industry? Can you tell me more about working in a dungeon? How many years has it taken for a sub to become your full-time slave? And have you terminated any of those relationships because it wasn't working anymore? How does one enter the world of FemDom and find partners that are safe and knowledgeable? Can you give me some examples of how BDSM can be healing for doms and subs? Why do you think some people who were raised in highly religious households are drawn to kink? My partner wants me to choke him during sex. Choking seems to be a form of breath play. My hesitancy is safety. What do you suggest? Let's dive in and listen to the Q&A. I hope you will gain value from it. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I am Mistress Damianachiphd, Ph.D. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I have been a professional dominatrix for 25 years. I have a Ph.D. in clinical psychology, a master's in counseling psychology, a bachelor's in behavioral sciences. So a lot of psychology in my background. I'm also a kink-centered sexologist and life coach. I'm the creator of Conscious Kink Community, the host of Lightworkers Who Play in the Dark podcast. I advocate safe, sane, consensual, and ethical BDSM as the updated motto of BDSM. So I inserted the word ethical at the end of that motto, that long time motto that we've had, because I feel it's important. Ethical is different from consensual. You know, something can be consensual but not ethical, right? So that is what I've been doing talks about. I've done some of those talks at DomCon, and so I hope that you can all be on board with helping me advocate that. I'm also the founder and instructor at the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy. And that's which is something I'm very proud of. I am teaching DOMs, both lifestyle and pros. We learn a lot of psychology in there, because BDSM is there's so much psychology in BDSM, right? So we learn the psychology of domination, and we learn the psychology of the submissive end of things. So very proud of all my students and graduates all over the world in my academy. All right, I'm going to go ahead to the first slide now. It's going to be the first question. And this question is from Electra. And she asks, what is the best first step to get into the professional FemDom industry? Can you tell me more about working in a dungeon? Should I start with some of the dungeons to get some more confidence and experience to progress professionally? So Electra, this is a great question and a really big question. And what I can say about this is, you can start working at one of the professional dungeons in your area. If they are reputable and if they've been around a long time, then yeah, you can start getting some training there. But really and truly, this is what all of my students say in my academy, that you really need a good foundation in the psychology of domination and the psychology of submissiveness before you can go into a dungeon and just start doing the active stuff with the toys and the equipment and things like that, right? Because FemDom stands for female domination. And domination is something that you not only do with your toys and your equipment, but it's something that you do psychologically. Domination is psychological and verbal and mental, right? So I always give the example, like when someone is, let's say, flogging a sub, when a dom is flogging a sub, and they're just flogging them, or they're just doing something like bondage or whatever, but they're not able to get into the mind of that submissive and put them into subspace and dominate them according to their personal submissive psychology, then they're not really a dominatrix. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, so my answer to your question is, yeah, you can start getting some experience with some of the skills, the physical skills and things like that. But to learn the art of domination, there's an art to it. Female domination is an art form. So I would say take some classes with teachers like me who teach domination if you really want to be a real dominatrix. Because your submissive can tell if you are just doing the stuff, which doesn't make you a dominatrix. That makes you a top. A person who's just doing the stuff to the sub is a top. They're not a dom, technically. Okay? If you would like to apply to the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy, I would love to welcome you to do that. The website is academy.theevolutionarydominatrix.com. You're all welcome to apply. There's an application process. You have to know something about BDSM, some basics at least. But I teach people who are just starting out, and I also teach doms who are already been in the industry for a while and they want to hone their verbal skills and their understanding of the psychology of domination. So lots of experience levels, different experience levels. You're all welcome. So Electra, I hope that helps you. And here's a question from Heather. And she asks, how have your experiences with women been compared to your experiences with men? And have you had many sessions that are with non-binary/queer people? I'll answer that one first. So I have dominated many women as well as men. I have dominated more men than I have women or non-binary queer people. And that's just because I'm a professional dominatrix and most of the people that come and see me, that pay for sessions, are men. Women have come and paid for sessions. And I love dominating women. It's an amazing experience. I cherish those sessions because they are kind of few and far between. So my experiences with dominating women are, physically, they will bruise faster. Their skin isn't, it's more tender, it's softer, right? So yeah, they do tend to bruise faster. When I've done things like floggings, I have to be careful not to go as hard because they will get to their limits faster than men. Yes, and I do have experience with non-binary and queer people. And, it's like the submissive spirit is really the same amongst women, men, non-binary, queer. It's the same. There's a submissive spirit there behind the person that I'm dominating, right? And so it's like the only real differences are, like I said, the skin, softer bodies. I think that men in general have more extreme fetishes and fantasies. In my experiences, like it might be just, and I think it's only because men in our society just need to be dominated more because they don't get to submit in their day-to-day lives as often. So I hope that helps with that question. And your second question here, do you recommend any in-person workshops in New York City that are queer run and oriented? Yes. So I have a longtime friend named Yin Q, who's in New York City. She's been a dom. She's no longer a professional dominatrix. She was a long time ago, but she's now teaching and doing. She's directing films and things like that. Look her up, Yin YIN-Q, and just tell her that I referred you. She will be able to direct you to those workshops and events and things like that that are queer. Yeah. So tell her I said hi. Thanks, Heather. Submark asks, in my attempts to find a mistress in my geographic area, I have yet to find any dominatrices who have expressed an interest in a telephone conversation or an initial session focused on whether we would be a good match. Am I misguided in wanting an interview or application process before committing to her? What is reasonable to expect a dominatrix to disclose about herself or to ask her in the interview process? Okay, so Submark, if you're looking for a professional, it looks like you're looking for a professional dominatrix to have a session with. The interview process or the application process to accept subs is up to that dominatrix. Everyone will do it their own way. There's no rule out there that says that dominatrices always have to do something a certain way. They do it their own preferred way. I do telephone interviews myself. I have that's my process. That's my application process where I always require a telephone interview. But someone else might. So reputable doms who have, who I feel are, I think, doing things the more professional way, are going to do an interview, whether it be on the phone or on Zoom or a coffee meet or something like that. Usually there's some kind of an interview in order for her to accept this person as someone she would like to have as a client. So that's generally the way it's done. If you are maybe having trouble finding someone who does that, they're probably not a professional. They're probably maybe a lifestyle dom, and they can do whatever their own. I don't have any say in. I'm not a lifestyle dom. So if you're trying to meet people like on FetLife or something like that, don't expect them to be as professional dominatrices who have. They generally have like a way of doing the things, a routine, a way that they go about the vetting process. So if you want to find a more professional dominatrix, find a pro-dom professional dominatrix who does things in the way that you're asking. So if you want an interview with someone, you're going to have to offer to pay a tribute, whatever that is, in order to interview. It sounds like you want to interview her. And, I can't tell you what dominatrix is willing to disclose. That's a personal thing. But I would say ask her about her training. Ask her about, who has she done classes with? Who has she done any courses? Does she have a mentor? Things like that. But more often than not, the dominatrix will have the interview process that she puts subs through. So I hope that helps, Submark. Okay, Vic is asking a question here. On average, how many years has it taken for a sub to become your full-time owned slave if they are so inclined and you accept them? And has one of those relationships ever terminated just because it wasn't working anymore? So there isn't an average, Vic, but I can tell you that it took 17 years for me to collar and own a slave. That's probably my longest. And let's see, another one that I'm going to collar very, very soon. He's been serving me for 10 years. Others who I've known who have collared quicker, like in the matter of a few months. I have known them because they served a mistress friend of mine. So I've known them, I've known their character, I've known, they've come very well recommended, things like that. So I've collared those slaves. And if anyone doesn't understand what it is to be an owned collared slave, it is a slave that I own for life. Like, this is a commitment on both our parts to just be bonded for life with that slave collar that has my name on it. So it's a serious thing. That's why it's not good to just collar a slave if you haven't known them that long. Yes, there has been a couple of situations where I've terminated those relationships, and that is one of them I collared after 1 month of knowing this person, and they didn't come recommended by a friend or anything like that. They just came into my life, just totally made a super good impression on me, and asked for the collar. Mistress, may I please be collared by you, kind of a thing. I want to be owned by you, kind of a thing. And they just made just a fantastic first impression. And this is me telling you that I made a mistake there because that one did not work. I did not know this person well enough to know that there would be problems later on. And I had to terminate that relationship. So generally, a person that has become my slave, that stays my slave and stays owned by me and who I'm happy with, is someone I've picked myself. They have to be someone that I choose, not someone that's come to me and saying, Mistress, I really want to be owned by you. Please, will you take me as my own? That usually doesn't work so well in my experience. So you're asking me personally how it's worked for me, and that is my experience. Thanks for that question, Vic. Pussy is asking, I love sessioning with you. I would do it every day if I could. I fantasize a lot about being a permanent slave, even though my circumstances don't allow for it now. But it makes me wonder, I know there is a whole world where people don't only session but live femdom 24/7. It seems like that is a whole different world. How does one enter that world and find partners that are safe and as knowledgeable or even half as knowledgeable as you? Pussy is my submissive who does session with me. And yes, you do tell me that you would session every day with me if you could, but your dream is to become a permanently owned slave to a mistress. And yes, there is a whole world out there with people who live femdom 24/7. I have, in my relationships with my submissives that I own, yes, it is a 24/7 femdom relationship, but I don't live with them. It's not like we cohabitate, That situation is not one that I choose. So I do it this way. But I know many, many couples who live a 24/7 it's called FLR, female-led relationship, where they live together. And, there are some struggles with that relationship, just like there are struggles in any kind of cohabitating situation. Have you ever, of course, you've all lived with people and there's tension, there's problems, there's things like that happening with the person that you live with. They could be roommate. You know what I mean? Like, they're not necessarily your partner, but there's problems with cohabitating. It's not an easy thing. So I just want to tell you, don't think like it's this dreamy, perfect world where it's always this like, oh, the dom just tells me what to do and I do it, and it just, no. You're all human. We're all human. So there's human problems that get in the way, and so just keep in mind that is the reality. If you want to get into a situation like that, I mean, by all means, go to like FetLife to meet people online, or go to parties. There's lifestyle parties that you can go to in person. There's parties and events and things like that where you can meet people. You know, yeah, there's munches, meetups. So if you really want to meet someone, if you want to meet a dom, there's lots of options like that. But can you find someone as knowledgeable or half as knowledgeable as me? No, not really, because I've been a pro dom for 25 years, and I've been a lifestyle dom for more than 30 years. And I can count on one hand how many doms are as knowledgeable and experienced as me. That's why I'm choosing to be a teacher, so I can teach doms and pass down my knowledge and pass down this tradition of classical female domination. What I teach is classical femdom, and you don't see a lot of classical femdom these days. It's a lot of watered down domination, a lot of like made up things, you know. It's not, there is a classical traditional way of doing femdom. There's certain protocols that are passed down. That is the truth of it, okay? There's a lot of people that have been trained by me who are very, very, very good, who I would highly recommend. You can go to my website, the Academy website, academy.theevolutionarydominatrix.com, and there is a page called Certified Graduates. So you can look on that page and try and touch base with some of the doms there. Thanks, Pussy. Okay, this question is from Larger Than Life. I am a new dominatrix, just learning the ropes, no pun intended. I have gained about 35 pounds over the past 2 years and don't feel particularly sexy. Are there stores that make dominatrix wear for women over 200 pounds? Are there men who find heavy dominatrices attractive, or should I stop my journey until I lose weight? Larger Than Life, this is a totally personal choice. You say that you don't feel particularly sexy at this weight. Well, then you have two choices. You can own your body the way it is and start loving yourself the way it is, and then start feeling the sexy where you are now, you know? Or you can choose to lose weight and still love yourself all along the way during that weight loss journey. So if you want to, dominatrix wear is dominatrix wear. You'll find, I don't know any particular clothing companies who have clothing that's geared towards, women who are larger sizes. But there's all kinds of things that you can do to make dominatrix wear. There's like, if you go on to, let's say, Amazon or something like that, and you find a cat suit, like something that fits you because it's stretchy, find a cat suit, something like what I'm wearing here. It's like a stretchy, it looks like leather, but it's not. Something like this. And then put a corset over it. I mean, corsets are so useful. There's lots of corset shops that do make, the best corset shops are actually the ones who make custom corsets for your size. So, they'll ask you to measure yourself. They'll make a corset custom just for you, and then cinch that corset. And so I would say, if you want to keep being a dominatrix now, just keep being a dominatrix now and cinch that corset. And I mean, anybody with a corset, anybody who puts on a corset, men or women really, is going to feel sexier because it's just that dommy feel, and cinching your waist like that is just going to make you feel sexier. So it's your choice, of course, but in my opinion, why wait? Why wait? Because you don't want to just stop learning the ropes. You want to just keep doing your journey. So that's my advice, larger than life. All right, Mistress Scarlet says, I am a lifestyle mistress. My boyfriend has expressed an interest in face sitting, which I had never heard of. This sounds intriguing to me, but I'm wondering two things. Do you have resources where I would suggest to check out to learn more about face sitting? I looked at Kink Academy, but came up empty. And can you share a bit from a psychological perspective on why a sub might enjoy having their face sat on? Yeah, so face sitting has been around for as long as I've been a dom, over 2 decades. It was a thing. It was a fetish. It was a kink way back then. So it's a thing. Resources, if you haven't found anything, maybe if you haven't found on Kink Academy anything, then just maybe Google it and you just look at what's trustworthy. Don't maybe look at porn as a resource for teaching you how to do it the right way. But face sitting, it's pretty basic. You just, so the sub is lying down flat on their back, and then you sit on their face, but not all the way. It is a form of breath play too. You can sit on their face and make it so that they're not getting the full amount of air that they would normally get. And that's a form of breath play. Or you can sit completely on their face, cut off their oxygen, and just count the number of seconds in your head or out loud. I like counting in my head because then it makes it more of a mystery to the sub of when you're gonna sit up, let them have some air. But, depending on that sub, you can do it for, I've had subs where I've counted 60 seconds, but they're, the person I'm thinking of was a swimmer who was really good at holding his breath, and he had really strong lungs. You know what I mean? It's an individual thing. So not everybody can hold their breath the same amount, so you just have to test it out. Just start off with 15 seconds, go up to 20 seconds, and then go to 25, 30, just try it out, play. And that's basically face sitting. And then, face sitting is not the same as queening. Queening is forcing your sub to do oral worship, to lick your pussy, right? That's considered queening. It's different. It's sitting on the face and making them service you. So that's a little different, but some people mix it up, they do both together, whatnot. So that's up to you. But your last question here, psychologically, perspective on why a sub might enjoy their face. Think about it. If you have a person sitting on your face, it's a pretty dominating feeling, right? So, and anything on someone's face is like a dominating, sometimes a humiliating feeling, sometimes a degrading feeling. I guess you could just kind of switch it in your mind and imagine if somebody's sitting on your face, you feel dominated, don't you? So there's not, the reasons are kind of obvious. So it's dominating and it's hot because the dom is sitting on the sub with her ass and with her pussy, with her intimate parts. So to be dominated by a woman's most intimate parts and sexiest parts, her ass and stuff, it's like you get dominating and hot at the same time. It's kind of like, wow, right? You get all that. So I hope that was a good, is that a good psychological explanation? Thanks for asking that, Mistress Scarlet. Long-time listener, first-time asker is asking. So they say, I am a big fan of Lightworkers Who Play in the Dark podcast. Thank you for creating it. I am learning a lot. I have two related questions based on in part on what I've heard you mention on your podcasts. You have mentioned that BDSM play can be healing, both for DOMs and submissives. Could you give some examples? I am especially curious about healing for subs. And is the healing you see for DOMs often related to empowerment and ownership of their body and sexuality? What a great question, longtime listener. This is a great question. I'm going to take examples from 2 subs that I had sessions with recently. One of these submissives was someone who came to me because they had never had a session with a professional dominatrix. They only sessioned with their partner who wasn't completely dominant. And they've had submissive fantasies since childhood. So this is it's an ingrained thing, like being submissive is their sexual orientation, right? So when it's your sexual orientation, you're wired this way, you're born this way, you know? And so this was a person that came in, and I mean, it was the response I got from that person was just so touching to my heart. This person wrote me an email afterwards and said, I wish I can, remember the words. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to go and read it, because I know how to find it. Mistress Chi, thank you so much for the session today. First, I want to thank you for your professionalism throughout the process, from the first time I contacted you and throughout the entire session today. Second, you brought healing to my soul. Being able to share my hidden and extreme fantasies to receive your accepting response was a huge mental release. Third, I felt an amazing physical cleansing from your skillful whipping. There's a couple of things in here that are probably too personal. And then at the end, finally, I want to add that you are not only an incredible dominatrix, but you're one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met. Your courage to follow your passion in life, your intelligence, your ability to discern and play off another person's energy are impressive beyond words. Thank you for bringing healing to my soul and my body today with the deepest gratitude and respect. So reading that just fills my heart with so much fulfillment, because I know that I'm doing what I came to Earth to do, is to heal people through BDSM. And how it's healing, I want to get to answering your question here, longtime listener. How it's healing is, okay, so this person came to me and said, these are my fantasies. I'm really embarrassed to say them to you because I don't know you, and I've had these my whole life, and they're kind of extreme fantasies. And we were sitting together, we were about to start our scene, right? So this is the first time we're meeting each other in person. And I heard the fantasies, and I was like, wow, that's pretty hot, and I can't wait to play with you, with them, because I love this fantasy, and I'm already imagining ways that I can enhance it. I'm going to, making it my own fantasy and enhancing it by adding my own things to it, So that's exactly what I did. I made it my fantasy, and we went through the session, and so it's healing because I'm not only accepting their fantasy, I'm playing with him, and I'm totally excited about the dom end of things, right? And so it's an interactive thing about this fantasy that has been brought to me by the sub. The scene always has to be created around the submissive's fantasy. Not always, but especially when you're first meeting, you have to do it that way. It's healing because it's not just, okay, like the reason why I stopped doing therapy, I used to be a psychotherapist. A client would come to me, tell me about their secrets and things like that. They're going through issues and things like that. And I would sit on the other side of the room in a chair and just be like, I hear you. I'm feeling you. I'm doing all this. I'm being totally accepting, but it only goes so far, right? There's a ceiling to that. And so the reason why I just kept doing my domination and just kind of letting go of the therapy end of things, the therapist career. You know, I'm still a I call myself a life coach, not a therapist anymore, because I do sessions, counseling sessions as a life coach. But as a dom, I can not only accept that very private fantasy that is to them very scary to tell someone, I'm also playing it out with them and excited myself personally about it, you know? So that's my way of intellectually describing to you why it can be healing, but really play with someone who is, play with a light worker dom, and you'll see what I mean. And that light worker dom has to do it just like how I described. They have to accept your fantasy with no judgment and bring it into themselves and play it full on out, like with their own desires mixed in. So it's a co-created scene, right? And then you say, is it healing for the dom? How is it healing for the dom? Yeah, it's definitely related to empowerment, ownership of my sexuality and things like that. Definitely, but there's so many other layers to why it's healing. For me, it was like when I first started becoming, when I started doing pro-dom sessions, I came to it because I was younger. I was like, oh, I can totally dominate men. You know, I've always been dominant with the male sex and things like that. But I didn't have a empathic, compassionate kind of feeling about men. And so when I started doing sessions and I saw this very vulnerable side of them where they're just letting their whole self out, they're giving themselves to me, trusting me, you know, it really touched my heart. And I began feeling so much love for my submissives and for my clients that it was healing to me on the level of just being human, you know? So, and then it's healing to me, like when I get an email from a person like that I just shared with you, it's healing to my soul to know that I've helped someone, that I saw someone, I see them for who they are, and I love them for who they are. And that in itself is healing me. So for all healers out there, for any type of healing work, it is healing for the healer to heal. So I hope that helps. Hope that answers your question, long-time listener. Oops, I think I skipped one. Yeah. This is from churches to the Chi Temple. Can you comment on why you think some people who were raised in highly religious households were drawn to kink? Yeah. So many of you have heard about how, you know, the more repressed you are, the kinkier you are, right? Or the hornier you are, or something like that. It has some truth to it, you know, because so kink itself, the definition of kink is that it is sexuality based on something that's not considered normal, right? It's considered out of the box of normal. So you can say that means it's taboo, right? So kink is generally something that's taboo or something that's thought of as racier than normal, you know? So kink also has elements of the power dynamic. So there's domination involved, right? So there's an element of force involved, right? And so when something is taboo or forced or something like that, or or it's considered out of the bounds of normal, then it's considered kinky and it's considered more exciting and hot, right? And so everything in highly religious religions that are very strict usually confine like sexuality to, you're only supposed to do sex to procreate or something like that, right? And so the confines of that definition of what you're allowed to do is very small. And so, of course, it's going to be exciting to do anything that's outside of that. Like, oh my God, blowjob. Or, oh my God, to do sex with a strap on. Anything that's outside of the confines of that, what's considered normal is kinky and exciting. So people who hadn't had a lot of experience outside of normal sex are gonna like go crazy when they discover kink because they've been in that small confine for so long. Doesn't that make sense? That's just my rambly way of explaining that. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, Queenie, your question here is, you have mentioned a new class on advanced skills and also a book. Could you tell us a little more about both and when we might expect them? Hi, Queenie. I think you might have been a previous student of mine if you're asking about a new class on advanced skills. And so I think that you might have been a student of one of my workshops. Back then, when I was just teaching in-person workshops, I was teaching a workshop on advanced BDSM as well. But now I have the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy where I only teach my the advanced BDSM stuff to my graduates. So in order to learn from me, you have to go through the whole foundational level of the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy, graduate, and then you can get into my advanced academy. I have a new level of my academy called the advanced level of the academy. And that is where I teach advanced BDSM skills. I no longer teach it to the public. I teach it only to my students because I want to teach mentees who are committed to learning from me. And, sometimes people come to me and say, they just kind of write me an email out of the blue. I don't know them. And they're like, will you teach me? Will you teach me a class? Will you teach me how to flog or something like that? And I'll say, I'm sorry, but I won't do that. I need you all to take my foundational course first, because as I said in the beginning of this class, I don't feel it's right to just teach flogging to someone who doesn't know domination. You got to learn domination to be a dominatrix. That means the psychological, verbal, mental domination. You got to know the mental part of it in order to be a dominatrix. So to answer your question, I do have a new level in my academy. It's called the advanced level of the foundational. I have two levels. I have the foundational level of the academy and the advanced level. And so I do teach it there. And I do in-person workshops for those students. So I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll join us, Queenie. And a book. Thank you for asking about this, because I am currently working on it now, and I have a deadline to complete it in a few months. In a few months, it will be out. DomCon this year, 2024, is at the end of May. It will be in my booth, on the table, the physical book, on the table at DomCon. That is my goal. I expect myself to reach that goal. And so, yes, that's the timeline. Thanks for asking, Queenie. Okay, Kinky Fun is asking, my boyfriend wants me to start slapping him when I come. Have you ever heard of this? Could you give some examples of the kind of consent-based questions a conscious kinkster would ask before they just begin slapping someone? I love this question. Yeah, it's awesome. I'll just give you a little bit of training, on slapping, but look into it more, just beyond what I'm telling you. First of all, you got to be careful when you slap. Don't slap as hard as you can at first, Don't even slap as hard as you can. Just don't do that. You gotta find out where you're aiming. So don't slap the ear, because when you see, look at my hand. I can if I put my whole hand, my fingers are getting my ear. So don't let your fingers go past the cheek. So when you're slapping, you gotta slap with like this part of your hand, right? Like the top part, like this. You got to slap it like the first half of top half of your hand. Don't slap with the bottom part, the palm, because you're going to slap too far. Okay. Have them clench their teeth so you don't get them, you can chip a tooth or something like that if you're not careful, if you're slapping really hard. And you want to be careful of their jaw too. You don't want them moving their jaw and doing something like that. Have them close their teeth, clench their teeth, and do that. And you can, if you want to really do it good, if you want to do it right, you can start this before your session, your sex session or kink session or whatever you're doing. You can practice and say, how hard is this? How hard is this? Is this hard enough or is this not hard enough? You don't want to do it too soft because that's not even slapping. So you want to try it out with your partner and practice. So practice slapping before you get into this session. So it sounds like it's his fantasy to have you slap him when you come, which is, I don't know, it might be hard for you because you're coming and you're trying to fulfill his fantasy at the same time. There's all this stuff happening and going on. I mean, so you can try it, but tell him, hey, no promises. When I'm coming, I want to enjoy my orgasm, and so I'm going to do the best I can. But this is your fantasy, and so I'm just going to do the best I can. No promises. You know what I mean? I remember I had a sub tell me, this was like, it's just stuck in my mind. He told me that a long time ago when he first started as a sub, he had this dom who would take him, she would like kidnap him and do things like that and kind of like go out. It was more than just the professional session. She would do things like take him, and then she'd take him home, and she would sit him in front of her, like on the couch, and make him go down on her. And when she came, she would slap the top of his head, just be like, oh, while she was coming, And he said that this memory just like it was emblazoned in his brain, and now it's emblazoned in mine because the image of that is so hot. But so see if your boyfriend would be interested in that, like being slapped on the top of the head instead of the cheek, because his cheek's gonna be down there in between your legs, if that's what he's doing. If what he's doing is servicing you or something like that. So anyway, I hope that helps you, kinky fun. Have some kinky fun. Okay, Diva, who is choking, she asks, my partner wants me to choke him during sex while I am on top. We are in our 50s and have heard that choking during sex is quite common among young people. It's kind of similar to the last question. I'm choking on choking. My hesitancy is safety. I took a CPR class, so if, heaven forbid, something happens to my partner, I can take action while EMTs arrive. What other education would you suggest? Finally, choking seems to be a form of breath play. Are there other things I might do that aren't actual choking, but head in that direction, or might give a sense of being choked? Hi, Diva. This is a great question. And I guess, choking has become kind of more common amongst the younger generation these days, right? But it's been around since probably the beginning of sex, choking, during sex. So I want to just kind of ease your mind a bit on choking. You're not going to really choke him out, Don't choke. If he wants to be choked or to pass out, don't do that. Just say no. Just say, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not, that's beyond safe, beyond my limit. I'm not going to do that. So just tell your partner no on that. You don't want him to be choked out. You're not going to do that. So you're not even going to need your CPR class because he's not going to be out. He's not going to have to come back from being out. The best way, the safest way to choke your partner is to see how it's a really natural way to put your hand right here in between the thumb and index finger. There's this nook, right? So you do this, and you want to squeeze the sides of the neck instead of down. Don't really press down hard on the trachea, right? Because that's going to cut off the windpipe, and you don't really want to do that. It is hot to be choked and to feel like you're in control of his breathing and things like that. But just give the feeling of squeezing and cutting off, maybe, cut off some blood vessels instead of cutting off the windpipe, because that's going to give the simulation of choking. And it's still hot. It's still choking. It's considered choking, and do it in intervals. Don't just keep doing it. Don't keep going. Do it in intervals, count seconds. This is similar to that question on face sitting, what I said earlier about counting seconds. So in your mind, you can count seconds, and or you can count it out loud if you want to. But for sure, what you want to do is just stare at your partner in his eyes. This is something where this is one of those things where you don't want your partner to be blindfolded, because you want him to look in your eyes while you're choking him and look dominant and look sadistic and enjoy it for yourself. Don't just choke him for the sake of, if you're doing something for your partner, it's not going to work. It's not going to be hot for him if you're just okay, I'm going to choke you now, and I'm all concerned about your safety. It's just not going to be hot for him. You know what I mean? So take that out of your mind and choke him for you. Really do it for you. Do it from your own enjoyment. Any of these things that I'm saying, do it for your own enjoyment. The face sitting, all of these hot, kinky acts that we're talking about today. Doms, do it for yourself, because your partner wants to feel your pleasure. They want to feel your sadistic pleasure. And sadism doesn't necessarily have to do with physical pain. Sadism has to do with you enjoying something at their expense. That's what sadism is, right? And so you can be delighted. You can be, you can have, you can giggle. You can do an evil laugh. Whatever comes naturally. Don't force anything. Don't act. It has to come from a real place inside of you. So that's my biggest recommendation, is that you do it from a place that's authentic, from inside of you and who you are as a dom. Okay, I think that might be my last question. Let's see. That's my last question. At this time, I want anybody because I want to spend just a few minutes answering. I thought this was going to go a lot longer because there was more questions this time than last time, but I want to spend a few minutes on your question. If your question was posted here today, if you have any questions after my answer and you want to discuss it with me a little bit, then unmute yourself and I'll go find your question. If I sufficiently answered your questions, and you feel complete, then we're complete. But I just want to give that opportunity to anyone. If you want to discuss your question a little bit more, unmute yourself right now. Wow, we're good then, huh? We're really good? Okay, I just want to show you a few of my websites here. My main website is damianachiphd.com, and I'm also on social media at damianachiphd, mostly on Instagram. So that is my main social media platform that I use. And here is my podcast website. It's podcast.damianachiphd.com. It's the Lightworkers Who Play in the Dark podcast. My Patreon website, which is patreon.com/damianachiphd. If you want to join my Patreon community and just come to these monthly conscious kink Zoom calls every month, you are automatically invited if you join my Patreon community. If you join at the exclusive and VIP levels, then you're also invited to the live domination Zoom call every month as well. As well as there's a private Telegram group that I am on with those members, the exclusive and VIP. You can also have one-on-one private chats with me if you're VIP as well. So those are other ways that you can be in community with me in my Patreon group. Here is my Academy website. It's academy.theevolutionarydominatrix.com. And you're welcome to submit an application to my academy. It's a one of a kind psychologically based certification program in the art and mastery of conscious female domination. I also created an online network called Conscious Kink Community, and you're welcome to apply to join there too. It is also a vetted community. So we only get conscious kinksters there. We don't get, people like FemDoms, people that are trying to take your money and things like that. So that's why I created it, so that we can have a safe, supportive community to talk kink together. All right, that's it. I look forward to seeing you all again next month, and whoever wants to come again next month, I welcome you. And I hope that anyone who's interested in coming next month, join my Patreon community. So I will see you there too.
It is an honor to provide education to my Patreon community and share it with the wider kink community and the public. It is so important to share this information to dispel misunderstandings and misrepresentations of what true BDSM is. BDSM is about love, trust, acceptance, openness, sharing, and intimacy. Anything else that feels self-serving, harmful, or negative is not true BDSM. Please share this information with anyone who is interested so we can spread knowledge and understanding about this beautiful art form and deep level of connection. This podcast is fully supported by my Patreon members. Your patronage is so appreciated. As a member of my Patreon community, you will be able to connect with me in fun ways. Become a member by going to patreon.com/damianachiphd. I'd like to send special thanks and shout-outs to my Patreon members. Your support means so much to me, and it feels so good to know that what I'm doing is appreciated by you. It is an honor to contribute to my beloved kink community. Many thanks to Adam 975, Andre, Kaya A, Michael, Mickey 22, Mistress Nacole, Slave Nipples, Peter R, Pussy Doll, Richard LT, A Aramaz, Albertus, Allinthebrain, Bill Bumpus, Divine Diva, DJW, Eva, Domina Flora, Iryna S, Jeff, Julian S, Nevaeh C, Mystic Dax, Nevaeh, Omanafire, Anonymous, Tom, Tracey C, Vincent V, Betty, Gala, Jake, Mark R, Ms. Coco 1111, Lady Sublime, uuee Crump, Johnny S.D., Raven, and Sweetgirl Julia. And special thanks to the editor, Sweetgirl Julia.